Welcome to a new episode. Today, we're diving into a case that shook Iraq and the entire Arab world. In the bathroom, a place that's supposed to be safe and private, they found the body of a young woman, Dr. Ban Ziad Tariq, lying on the floor, her blood scattered everywhere. Her body was covered with blue and yellow bruises, some old and some fresh, as if she had been subjected to repeated beatings over several days. Her hands had deep wounds. On her neck were circular red marks, as if she had been strangled with a rope or wire. But the rope was nowhere to be found, as if it had vanished into thin air. And the strangest part of all, on the bathroom door, written in her blood, in bold, orderly letters were the words, "I want God." Each letter was about 3 centimeters tall, as if it were a final message. But how could someone, while bleeding so heavily and in the throes of death, manage to write with such precision? That writing required a lot of blood and focus, which would have been nearly impossible if she was alone and dying. When she was transferred to Al-Jumhuriyah Hospital in Basra, doctors said she had arrived already dead, with no pulse or breathing, and her pupils were dilated, unresponsive to light, meaning she had been dead for hours. The doctors were shocked and said, "This doesn't look like an ordinary suicide. It seems like a meticulously planned crime." But from the very first day, the family insisted she had done this to herself. And that's what made people suspicious. What exactly happened that night? How could all these injuries be self-inflicted? And how do we explain the mix of old and new bruises? Ban Ziad Tariq was born in the early 1990s, around 1991, in the city of Basra, southern Iraq, a city known for its cultural history and beauty, but also for its social and political challenges due to the wars and conflicts it went through. She grew up in a respectable, educated family. Her father, Ziad Tariq Ismail, was a senior official in the educational administration in Basra, a man with status and responsibility. Her mother, Jinan Ghazi, was a biology teacher in a public school. The family was financially comfortable, living in a large house in the Al-Khalij neighborhood, a relatively quiet and safe, upscale area in Basra. She had siblings, including one brother named Muhammad Ziad Tariq, and a sister whose name is not precisely known. From a young age, Ban was a calm and distinguished girl, excelling in her studies. Her dream since childhood was to become a doctor, not just for the profession, but to help people, especially in the field of mental health, which was very rare in Iraq, as it is in many Arab countries. Society viewed psychiatry as a stigma, as if anyone who visited a psychiatrist must be crazy. But the truth is, psychological problems can destroy a person's life if left untreated. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Ban studied with dedication. After achieving a high score in her high school final exams in 2008, she was admitted to the University of Basra's College of Medicine, one of the largest universities in Iraq. She chose to specialize in psychiatry and neurology. A brave decision, since the field was not only rare but also very demanding, requiring sensitivity and patience. At that time, Iraq was still suffering from the aftermath of wars and sectarian violence, and many people needed psychological support due to trauma. Ban graduated in 2015 among the top students in her class, which made her stand out to her professors. She began working at the Basra Health Directorate, the government body responsible for hospitals and clinics. She worked in Al-Basra Teaching Hospital, a major teaching hospital, where she began to build her reputation as a skilled and polite doctor. Not only that, but she also decided to pursue postgraduate studies in psychiatry from 2016 to 2020 to deepen her expertise and better understand human behavior and mental illness. In 2021, Banziyad Tariq opened a private clinic alongside her government job, called Clinic of Hope, in an area near Al-Khalij. The name reflected her personality, as if she wanted to give hope to every patient who walked through her doors. The clinic soon became well known, attracting patients not only from all over Basra, but also from other provinces such as Baghdad and Dakar, seeking treatment for depression, anxiety, addiction, or even war-related trauma. Ban helped hundreds of patients, treating them with kindness and patience, as if she truly felt their pain. In a 2022 radio interview on Basra FM, she said, "Psychiatry is not just about treating symptoms, it's an art. We try to understand a person from within and find a way to help them live a better life. Many of my patients complain of physical symptoms like headaches or stomach problems, but the cause is psychological, stress, or sadness." This statement reflected how passionate she was about her work and how she strived to change society's perception of mental health. In 2023, Ban began to gain more popularity on social media. She created short videos on Instagram and TikTok, giving people advice on how to cope with stress, how to help someone struggling with addiction, or even how to maintain emotional balance in difficult circumstances. These videos were simple but impactful, and by 2024, her followers had exceeded 300,000. She also appeared on local radio and TV programs, such as Al Basra TV, where she gave practical advice, like how people could fight depression without medication, or how parents could help their children overcome trauma. In July 2025, just weeks before her death, she gave a lecture at a medical conference in Basra on mental health in troubled societies. Her presentation was very well received by her colleagues, such as Dr. Omar Dahi Mustafa, who said she had been preparing to have her qualifications accredited in the UK so she could work internationally. Even on August 4, 2025, the day of her death, she posted an Instagram story advising people on how to deal with daily stress. She looked cheerful and natural, as if she was living life to the fullest, not at all like someone planning to end it. According to an official report that later leaked on August 3, 2025, Banziyad Tariq allegedly attempted to end her life with an overdose of medication, but that attempt failed and had no effect, a detail that her family would later use to support their version of events. The family claimed she was under psychological stress from her work at Al Basra Teaching Hospital and her daily routine, and that she was overly sensitive, but her colleagues, such as Dr. Omar Dahi Mustafa, insisted she seemed completely normal and showed no signs of depression or psychological disorder. That same day, August 3rd, it remains unclear what exactly happened inside the house. What is known is that her father, Ziad Tariq Ismail, and her mother, Janan Ghazi, were on a summer trip in Istanbul, Turkey, like any family trying to enjoy the season. At home were Ban and her siblings, including Mohammed Ziad Tariq, who was in Basra at the time. On the night of August 4, 2025, around 11 p.m. Basra time, tragedy struck. Ban entered the bathroom of her home, where she used a sharp object to inflict deep wounds on both her arms. Each wound was about 9 centimeters long and 6 centimeters deep, reaching the muscles and bone. This caused massive bleeding, hypovolemic shock, and eventually cardiac arrest. But this is where the doubts began. The wounds were identical on both arms, extremely difficult to self-inflict since the blood loss from the first cut would have immediately weakened her, making it nearly impossible to cut the second arm with the same precision. Bruises were found on her body and face, some old, about 3 to 5 days old, and others fresh, suggesting repeated beatings. Marks of strangulation on her neck formed a red circular shape, indicating someone used a rope or wire. But no rope was found at the scene, nor the sharp object that caused the cuts. On the bathroom door, the words, "I want God," were written in her blood, in neat handwriting. Such writing would require a large amount of blood and intense focus, nearly impossible for someone who was bleeding out and dying. The scene itself was unusually clean, as if someone had wiped away blood and traces, strongly suggesting external interference. On the morning of August 5, 2025, Ban was transferred to Al Jumeirah Hospital by her siblings. The doctors wrote an initial report stating, "The patient arrived deceased with clean-edge deep cuts reaching the bone, multiple bruises on the face and body, signs of strangulation around the neck, and a wound in the sensitive areas." This report leaked on social media the same day, along with photos and videos from the hospital, and that's what caused the case to explode. People began sharing the images saying, "This is murder. These wounds don't make sense. What about the old bruises?" The police immediately launched an investigation and noticed strange details. The external and internal cameras in the house had been disabled before, during, and after the incident, without any technical malfunction, as if someone had deliberately shut them down. Also, there was no trace of the sharp object or the rope, and the house was unusually clean, as if someone had spent hours wiping everything down. On August 6, 2025, the father Ziad Tariq Ismail and mother Janan Ghazi returned from Turkey after learning about the incident. At first, Ban's siblings told them she had been in a car accident and was in intensive care, so they wouldn't panic. But when they reached the house, they found it surrounded by police and learned the truth. Their daughter was dead, and the house was a potential crime scene. That same day, Janan Ghazi appeared in an interview on Al Basra TV saying, "My daughter Ban was under great psychological pressure from her work. She often complained she couldn't bear the routine anymore, that she had reached 34 years old without marriage or a love life. She said nobody loved her, and she even wrote in her diary that she wanted to withdraw from life." Her father Ziad confirmed her statement, saying Ban had been mentally unwell in recent months. But those diaries have never been shown to the media or to investigators, which made people even more suspicious. The family also refused a full autopsy, saying it was against their customs. That fueled even more doubts, since an autopsy could have revealed crucial evidence, such as toxins or internal injuries. On August 7, 2025, the police expanded their investigation and began interrogating family members, including Mohammed Ziad Tariq, the brother who was at home at the time of the incident. Suspicion quickly turned toward him after people discovered his Instagram account, which contained disturbing drawings, including images of a dead girl with cuts on her arms similar to Ban's wounds, and other photos of him with his cousin in abnormal states, as if under the influence of drugs. There were also messages Ban had sent to friends saying that her brother Muhammad was an addict who used drugs in the house, which caused her distress. On August 8th, police summoned Muhammad for questioning but released him quickly due to lack of evidence. They didn't even perform a drug test on him, prompting public outrage. How could they let him go without a test? That same day, the Doctors Syndicate in Basra issued a statement. Ban Ziad Tariq was a distinguished doctor. We will not accept her reputation being tarnished by a false narrative without a fair investigation. On August 12, 2025, Member of Parliament Uday Awad al-Hussein submitted an official document to the Basra Investigation Court, filled with suspicious points that shifted the course of the case. The document stated, "The house's internal and external cameras were deliberately disabled, no technical malfunction. Strangulation marks on the neck with no tool found at the scene. a delay of several hours in reporting the death, as if someone was cleaning the place. The body was transferred to the hospital without an official permit. Old and new bruises on the face and body, suggesting possible torture. Identical cuts on both arms, despite the fact that Baan was left-handed. Disappearance of the sharp object used to make the cuts. The writing "I want God" required a large amount of blood and high concentration. The family refused an autopsy, despite its importance to the investigation. Messages about the brother Muhammad's drug addiction, with no toxicology test done on him. A strange wound in the sensitive areas, inconsistent with self-harm. A relative's statement about finding narcotic pills in Baan's room. An audio recording of Baan saying she wanted to withdraw from life, but its authenticity remains unverified. This document escalated the case, and Iraqi as well as Arab media began to cover it widely. On August 13, 2025, engineer Rahab Al-Aboudi, a former parliament member, appeared on a program on Al-Iraqiyya TV and said that Baan was the head of the Psychological Evaluation Committee for the defendant Durgam Abdul Salam, who had murdered Dr. Sarah Al-Aboudi, Rahab's cousin, in another case in January 2025. Baan wrote a report confirming that Durgam was mentally sound and not disturbed, which meant he would face the death penalty. Durgam was related by marriage to Asad al-Aidani, the governor of Basra, so suspicions arose that some of Durgam's relatives or supporters threatened Baan to change the report, but she refused, which could mean they retaliated against her. Rahab also said that if it were proven that Baan had chosen to end her own life, this would cast doubt on her reports and could reduce Durgam's sentence. After making these statements, Rahab claimed she received death threats, which further heightened tensions. On August 15, 2025, Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani ordered a full investigation following massive public pressure on social media, especially on X, where hashtags like Aqsh, Justice for Baan, and Naqshan Ban Ziad Tariq were trending. On August 16th, peaceful protests took place in the streets of Basra, particularly in front of Al-Jumairiyah Hospital, with people carrying signs reading "Justice for Baan." Protesters demanded an independent autopsy conducted outside of Iraq. Online campaigns collected more than 50,000 signatures in 1 week, and the Doctors Syndicate in Basra renewed its statement saying, "We will not allow Baan's reputation to be smeared. She was a doctor who helped people, and there is no way she would have done this to herself." On August 18, 2025, the Basra Investigation Court issued a final 6-point statement, establishing the official narrative. Death resulted from vascular shock due to self-inflicted wounds. The handwriting in "I Want God" matched Baan's own handwriting. Phone conversations showed she had been suffering from depression. Toxicology tests were negative. No poisons were found in her body. A previous self-harm attempt occurred on August 3rd through an overdose of medication. No evidence of homicide or sexual assault was found. But many people were not convinced by this statement, as the medical report contained contradictions, such as bruises from 3 to 5 days earlier, abrasions on the face, and bruises that appeared after death, which were explained away as falls or effects of medication. As of August 21, 2025, protests were still ongoing and international campaigns had reached the United Nations, calling for an independent investigation. Now, let's discuss how the crime, if it really was a crime, might have been planned and executed based on the suspicions and circulated evidence. If we assume it wasn't self-harm, the planning might have started days before August 4th, maybe on August 3rd, with the overdose incident that they claimed was a failed suicide attempt. That could have been a preliminary step to weaken Baan or distract her psychologically. The perpetrator, whether an insider like a family member or even an outsider with inside help, could have planned the following steps. First step. The perpetrator disabled the house's external and internal cameras, either by cutting the electricity or changing the system settings. This would ensure that no footage existed of their entry, exit, or movements inside the house during the incident. The absence of her father Ziad and mother Janan in Turkey may have made it easier to carry out the crime without witnesses. If the perpetrator was an insider, like Muhammad for instance, he had a big opportunity to move freely inside the house. On the night of August 4th, the perpetrator could have lured Bon into the bathroom and used a rope or wire to strangle her until she lost consciousness, preventing resistance. The strangulation marks on her neck support this theory, but the rope's disappearance suggests it was deliberately removed. After Ban lost consciousness, the perpetrator used a sharp tool, like a surgical scalpel, to inflict the deep wounds on both her hands. A scalpel would have been easy to access in a doctor's home like Ban's, and it might have disappeared along with the rope. The wounds were symmetrical, which suggests they were made carefully to resemble self-inflicted injuries. The perpetrator then collected some of the blood and used a finger or brush to write "I want God" on the bathroom door. This was a dramatic touch to strengthen the illusion of suicide and add a religious or emotional tone to the scene. After the act, the perpetrator cleaned the scene thoroughly, removing excess blood, fingerprints, and other traces. This explains why the house appeared unusually clean, as though someone had spent hours scrubbing it. The perpetrator may also have placed narcotic pills in Ban's room to suggest she was addicted or mentally unwell. Additionally, the alleged audio recording where she supposedly said she wanted to leave life could have been fabricated using AI voice cloning or a similar voice. The perpetrator delayed reporting the death for hours, ensuring the scene was staged and no evidence remained. Moving the body to the hospital without an official permit supports this theory. If the family was involved, their refusal of an autopsy could have been to prevent uncovering evidence such as toxins or internal injuries. Their insistence on a quick burial was suspicious. If the motive was political, connected to the Durgam Abdul Salam case, then perhaps supporters or relatives of Durgam, like those linked to Asad al-Aidani, planned the crime as revenge against Bon for her psychiatric report, confirming that Durgam was mentally sound. They might have pressured her to alter the report, and when she refused, they plotted to kill her in a way that looked like suicide, thereby casting doubt on her credibility and potentially reducing Durgam's sentence. In similar Iraqi cases, like that of Dr. Sarah al-Aboudi in January 2025, murdered by Durgam Abdul Salam, the crime was straightforward, stabbing without any attempt to disguise it. But in Bon's case, the complexity suggests the perpetrator wanted to ensure it appeared as a suicide. In the end, my friends, the case of Ban Ziad Tariq is not just a story of death, it's a major lesson about mental health and justice. It reminds us of the importance of supporting those around us, especially people like Ban, who dedicated their lives to helping others but may have needed help themselves. If it was indeed a crime, it calls for greater transparency in investigations and the necessity of an independent judiciary. And with that, today's episode comes to an end. If this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Stay tuned for the next episode. Goodbye.